Good morning, everybody. What's going on? Welcome back to Movie Mornings. I'm your host, Martino, and today we're doing another Paul Thomas Anderson rewatch. Today we watched Boogie Nights. I'm very excited to talk about this one. It's Jose's first time seeing it, and it's going to be an exciting conversation, I think. I think we're going to have some differences of opinion, but maybe some similarities too. And that's okay. That's what it's all about, guys. So before we get started, please hit the like button below, subscribe to the channel, leave some feedback in the comment section, share this with your friends, hit that bell for notifications. And you guys know who my co-panelist is here today. It's Mr. Jose Espinel. Jose, what's going on?
There we go. Hey, what's up, man? I'm glad to be here. As Dom said, we just finished watching Boogie Nights, and I'm excited to get into this deep dive conversation.
Yeah, your first time watching, so
yes.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
Well,
exciting.
It's gonna be my first time. It's gonna be my first time for
all of them except for Licorice Pizza, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah. But yeah, no, man, I think it's exciting stuff. I think that this movie, to me, well, first of all, let's kind of start here. It came out, I think it was 19. I do have the Blu-ray
90,
here for reference. It's 90 something.
97.
97. So 1997 it did come out, and then also the movie was nominated for best screenplay, or Paul Thomas Anderson got nominated for best screenplay at the Oscars. Also best supporting actor Burt Reynolds and best supporting actress Julianne Moore. The movie tells the story of a guy named Eddie Vanter who ends up going into the porn industry, kind of gets pushed into it in a big way, which we'll get into, but also on the same hand gets this whole new identity, reinvents himself, becomes Dirk Diggler and all that. So to me, this is a classic. I don't need to tell a lot of you guys how I feel about it. It's a classic. I love it. I do own it. As I said, I do have the Blu-ray right here. So it's amazing.
That cover is funny.
I love this cover. Yeah, it's awesome. So it's a classic to me, like it is to a lot of people, and a lot of people do hold this in high regard, and I feel about the same way as probably a lot of people out there. But Jose, you had a different, kind of new experience with it, so let's kind of start with your thoughts here. What are your overall thoughts on the movie?
Overall, as a movie, I did enjoy it. It has its, comedy humor. It's got its emotions, its ups and downs, for most, if not all, characters in this show or movie. What is a show? Movie?
It's okay. Happens.
A stacked cast, honestly. Everyone,
very stacked.
Everyone did, everyone put their all and did amazing. It wasn't like one actor or actress stood out over the other. They all, carried their own. But like I was telling you off camera, I did feel like this movie could have been shorter. I feel like the runtime could have been shorter.
Yeah.
There were bits in the movie where I was kind of out of it, didn't want to, I feel like I wasn't enjoying like certain parts of the film, where it felt like it was more towards the that third act, kind of like towards in those last maybe like 40 minutes or so. I feel like a lot of that, just, I don't know, it just, for me, I just didn't find myself enjoying it. I felt like it could have just been cut and kind of could have just transitioned into where everyone's lives kind of turned into the better for everyone.
Is it that you would have cut, you wouldn't have cut all the stakes out of it, would you? Or not all, like I would have kept the Alfred Molina parts. I would have kept that stuff in. That stuff was awesome.
Cool. Yeah. But I feel like the director, John, no, what's his name?
Jack Torrance.
Him, trying to find some guy to have sex with roller skater girl and then beating him up. I feel like that could have been cut.
That stuff didn't work. Yeah.
The whole scene where Dirk Diggler was playing with himself and there's a guy in the car. I feel like all that stuff could have been cut out. I feel like a lot of this stuff I just wasn't there for me. I feel like it just could have been left out, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I personally enjoyed the moment in the limousine where they try to make that series, essentially, where they're picking up a guy up to have sex with roller girl. I actually enjoy that part. I thought it was pretty full circle with what was planted in the beginning with the dude in class. I enjoyed that karma. There's a lot of karma in this movie in general. Like we saw it with the Colonel too, where he kind of got his own. He was making fun of the guy for the girl ODing on him toward the beginning, and then right. he goes to jail for exactly the same thing and then some. So he ends up kind of getting karma. There's karma with Roller Girl and the dude. And yeah, no, that's okay that you didn't think that stuff fit. It's fine. I just, I don't know if it's because I've seen it so many times now that it's just ingrained in me that that's part of the movie.
Yeah, I probably would have to
doesn't
watch it a
really.
couple more times, then maybe
I think it's a lot of
it'll grow on me.
Paul Thomas Anderson too. Like the stuff that doesn't work for you maybe the first time always kind of works the second time or third time maybe.
In contrast to Hard Eight, which was a shorter film than this one, I find myself enjoying it from beginning to end. There was no bits in that one where I was not, where I wasn't out of it.
Hard Eight played smoother for you.
Exactly. Okay. Hard Eight was a perfect length. It played smoothly from beginning to end. There was no parts where I was out of it. Whereas this one's, this one's a longer film.
Yeah.
I just felt like for me it could have been
fair enough.
Just this first time around, I feel like it could have been shorter. But maybe I need to watch it, a couple more times, and then maybe it'll grow on me.
Yeah, that's a lot of Paul Thomas Anderson's movies. I think a lot of people have agreed on that, like to where it's like, man, for some reason I got something different out of it. It was like me with Licorice Pizza. Like I got something completely different out of it the second time.
I liked it. I liked it from beginning to end.
And that's great. Time I watch
it. I love it.
And that's great because sometimes that happens with those movies too, where it's just like that one. You'll watch it, you'll be like, yeah, that one's my favorite of his, and sometimes that happens too, where you could just definitively say it's your favorite. I still don't know which one's my favorite. That's why it's another reason we're doing this rewatch, because I really do want to rank and figure it all out. But this movie, I don't know if it's a thing to me where I just don't catch those things. I don't know, because it's just so ingrained in my mind now to where it's like I just expect those things. Right. Yeah. But maybe like if I had a fresh watch like you, I can't remember how I felt about it the first time. I mean, I do remember the first time I watched it, like I definitely found like some of the scenes to be a little bit disturbing and uncomfortable in some ways, for sure. And like, so that's something I remember picking up from this movie. Surprisingly disturbing and surprisingly uncomfortable. I remember kind of having that feeling about a couple of the things. And probably him, like you put it, playing with himself in the car was probably one of those things where I actually found it to be kind of an uncomfortable sequence, but now I guess I kind of respect it for that in a way after seeing it so many times. But the movie to me is just, it's classic. I mean, you were talking about the cast, which we can get into, because we'll start here. We'll start with just Mark Wahlberg alone. I actually don't know that it's really hard to top this role for him. I mean, there's a lot of great Mark Wahlberg roles. But this one, I don't remember him ever having a role that's so in depth as this after this movie. For me, like I can't think of any of them, but maybe there is.
I was going to say because Inappropriate he definitely has had since this movie. I mean, think about Ted 2, like that. Ted and Ted 2, like those.
I love those movies. Yeah,
inappropriate as movies, which I love. Mark Wahlberg's amazing in those.
Oh yeah, not inappropriate. I mean, he's definitely had inappropriate roles. It's like but it's a little bit more the sort of the way the character's written. It's a lot more. It's got a lot of depth and layers to it, and that I don't remember him ever having since this.
I don't think so. Yeah,
like. No. Lone Survivor maybe, but that's like the only one that like really stands out. That's a good movie.
I was gonna say Lone Survivor, that one probably
that stands out.
That's a phenomenal movie.
It really is. That one maybe stands out, but other than that, I can't think of any that he had. But this did like really to me like this launched Wahlberg's career into superstardom. Like this to me showed that he could lead a movie, and like he's been cast as a lead ever since. Like. Paul Thomas Anderson. This is the other interesting fact is this was he originally approached Leonardo DiCaprio to do the Wahlberg role, and Leo I think passed on it for scheduling purposes, not so much that he didn't like the script, but I think at the time he had something else lined up. And Paul Thomas Anderson said that he plans to work with Leo at some point, still in his career, which he hasn't, but which would be an amazing collaboration if you ask me. If they ever do, I would love to see that, but.
Imagine that's the next movie Paul Thomas Anderson comes out with is with Leonardo.
Exactly. And I always try to imagine this movie ever since learning that with Leo in that role. And I don't know that it would probably still be pretty good because Leo's Leo and he's great at what he does and he's very diverse and can play just about anything. So it probably would have been just as good, if not maybe even just a little bit better. I'm not going to lie. And that's not a slight at Wahlberg. It's just Leo's Leo, So
you're not wrong.
Yeah, it's not a slight at Wahlberg. I actually want to throw a compliment at Wahlberg that he kind of stepped in the footsteps of a role that was originally written around Leonardo DiCaprio and actually did a phenomenal job, I think, for the most
for
part.
sure.
Like, especially for an early role for him, I thought he really, like you said, everybody kind of gave it the role in this, and Wahlberg was no exception. I from the scene where him and his mother start that argument, I'm like, wow, he's going for it. He goes for it. Yeah, and like a lot of those dramatic scenes that Wahlberg has in this, they could be played to in a way that like they could be very funny. They can come off like maybe not hitting as dramatically as they did, but the way he plays it is very good. Like there's a part where him and Jack Torrance, Burt Reynolds' character, are arguing because the guy wants to have sex. He wants to have sex now. With the wrong actor, that scene could not play as well. Like it could play funny when it's not supposed to be funny. But Wahlberg makes it intense, and he brings actual real good intensity to it. And so watching this today, I actually picked up on that. I was like, man, if Wahlberg didn't play it that way, it would have been not right, you know? And I thought part of it's Paul Thomas Anderson's direction and the script. But I think the other part of it is, yeah, like you said, everybody just brought their all. Bouncing off that, though, a great scene partner I thought for Wahlberg was Burt Reynolds. I think Burt Reynolds playing Jack Torrance, you'll never see another Burt Reynolds role like this, in my opinion. I think Burt Reynolds is a very good actor in general, but I don't think he's ever been cast in a role like this. I think that was kind of Paul Thomas Anderson's goal, which he does with a lot of actors, is to put them in roles that you never thought you'd see him in. And
honestly, John C. Reilly was him and Mark Wahlberg also had some really good chemistry together, honestly. Like
another great scene partner.
Yeah.
100%.
100%.
And this was where Reilly, to me, again, I think this launched a lot of careers, this movie, because to me, this is where John C. Reilly, while he was great in Hard Eight, without a doubt, but this was a different role than Hard Eight easily. So two things it did for him. Number one, I think it showed his diversity and range, because it was such a contrast from Hard Eight. But on the other side of that, I think he really started to find his comedic delivery in this movie a lot. Like a lot of that comedic delivery.
Mean, yeah, because after this one, I mean, he's had Talladega Nights, Step Brothers,
Walk Hard. I mean he's got a lot of really great comedies that he's done.
Yeah.
And to me, this is where he found his real good comedic delivery. Like he found the rhythm that he's got now. And I love seeing it. He was awesome in this movie, 100%. Oh, yeah. And I loved watching him and Wahlberg.
Although he did, even though he did play a smaller role in this one than Hard Eight, I mean, I still really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
You didn't really see him as much as you did in Hard Eight, but still, I mean, he was great.
Well, somebody we did see more of was Philip Seymour Hoffman this time around, who had a very small role in Hard Eight. And again, I think it's a different role. Again, that's another guy. They showed a little bit of diversity for him in this one. It's a different role than he was in Hard Eight.
It's a different role for a lot of these actors.
100%.
You've never seen any of these actors in these kind of roles before.
Yeah, like I feel like Julianne Moore maybe has done another role like this. Well,
I don't know about.
Big Lebowski is the only thing that I could compare it to, because she's almost the same character she is in Lebowski, but other than that, like you're right, she doesn't have like a lot of roles like this as well. She's great in this movie. Every time she's on the screen, a smile comes on my face. She's got a real charm about her, and it doesn't matter what movie it is.
She's smoking.
She's a good-looking gal. Yeah, she's a very good-looking gal, and sometimes you don't realize it in other movies, you know. But like, I think she was shot in such a way in this one that, like, Paul Thomas Anderson really brought the charm and the glamour of her, like, on the screen. I don't mean that in the way that he sexualized her. I mean, like, he really just knew how to shoot her. You know, like it's the shots with her in it are great. Like they're just set up really well. It's shot choices, and that's another thing I want to get into a little bit, because the other thing this movie does is, if you are a film nerd and a film junkie, there's a lot of little nuggets in here for you, because they really do go into like the art of filmmaking and the amount of stuff that it takes to make a film. Like, I think you were picking
there's
up
that scene
on
that Jack was explaining to Mark about everything that it takes to, you know, make an actual film. I mean, you have director, you've got lights, 15 people running, making sure lights are in the right spot. You've got your script writer, you've got, you know, you got the boom. It's just like so many people. It just takes so many people and so much effort and time, you know, to make an actual film. It's crazy.
I love the first porn shoot that they do, because they really like dive into that in a big way. Like the way Paul Thomas Anderson shoots that scene is really like, you're watching a porn being shot, but on the back burner, you're really seeing all this, you know, filmmaking and everything going on.
Yeah, and I like that. I like that zoom in, or that. Well, I like how it goes into the
Yeah,
camera and
wasn't that great?
it shows the film like rolling. Yeah, that was, and then it shows it like it shows the film ending, and then it zooms back. Yeah, it's great. I love it
I
so
thought that was
much.
one of the best shots in the movie.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm with you.
100% without a shadow of a doubt.
I was hoping you picked up on that too, because I was looking at that
Oh,
today,
dude,
thinking about it. Like, that was awesome. Yeah.
it was amazing.
Yeah.
I loved that shot so much. It was incredible.
That was brilliant. That was awesome because, yeah, that'll get like a lot of film nerds excited to see that type of thing. Because
it got me excited when I saw it. I was in my seat, like just bouncing in joy and like a smile on my face seeing that. It was great.
Exactly, dude. Yeah, it was awesome. I liked how they had to have the conversation about the mag running out. They had to change that.
And I like how another thing I like too is how we got to see all different kinds of aspect ratio. So you had the, you know, when they were filming the porn, you had that little small square kind of raspy film. Same thing in the limo when they went to videotape. It was like a little wider, but it was still kind of raspy. And then when you're watching just the normal movie, it was just, you know, the regular aspect ratio with, you know, very smooth, crisp you know, film. So I liked seeing all those different kinds of aspect ratios and kind of, I guess, technological film styles.
Yeah, no,
really
for sure.
cool.
Yeah, I thought that was also great. I mean, everything about that. And then even seeing the style of, we were kind of talking about this a little bit, the style of acting used in the actual pornos was accurate.
It's so accurate.
It was so accurate. Yeah, like they did a good job actually kind of replicating that style, like especially like that 1970s porno, you know, world.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. But what I actually find to be even more interesting than that is the fact that, yes, it's a movie about the porn industry, but it's really about these characters at the end of the day. Like it's not just about the porn industry, really.
It's about the characters within the industry itself, right?
Yeah, you have to follow these characters as human beings at the same time, and that's what I really liked. And also just a love letter to filmmaking, period. He just kind of used pornography as the conduit to get to that in this movie.
Right.
That's what I really liked about this. I find that to be very fascinating that he used the pornography route, and he didn't have to. But the reason he does that, to me anyway, is to make this stand out amongst a lot of other movies in the genre, you know. So
true.
It's a different side, you know. It's a different take. Like, you can watch it and as somebody and be like, it was unnecessary to shoot it from the angle of the porn industry, but like somebody can have the critique and that's fine. But when I imagine it from the aspect of this, you know, Paul Thomas Anderson at the time being this young filmmaker in Hollywood trying to make his mark, I definitely understand why he did it that way. It kind of takes me to the last shot of the movie in general, which will be ingrained in your brain forever. That final shot, once you see it, you can't really unsee it. But
I did not need to see that, honestly.
It's kind of those last moments, though. You say that, and it's a fair critique, but it's a last moment to kind of ingrain the movie in your mind. You'll never forget that shot. You know what I mean? It's now become iconic. Everybody talks about it. You know.
I'm gonna be going to sleep tonight just imagining it, even though I shouldn't.
Fear the beast, but the that last shot though, it's iconic now. You know, everybody talks about it. It's one of those things where,
yeah, man, so many people have it as their lock screen now too, bro. It's crazy.
Probably. I don't want to know who, but some people probably do. The thing is, though,
Seymour Hoffman's character does.
If he made it to smartphone era, for sure. For sure.
Man.
Yeah.
Or just has a poster of it up in his room or something.
He was so good though. I mean, he made an iconic character out of this. Like, it's again that he's got that like over the top kind of like Jim Carrey energy to him or something, but on the same hand, more like, actually, I wouldn't even say like Jim Carrey energy. It's more like Jack Black energy he's got. That's kind of where I would take it. Like, he's got that over the top Jack Black energy, but he also, like, again, it helps the diversity because Paul puts him where he should be. Like, he puts him in these proper characters that really work for him, you know? And so I can't wait to get into Magnolia because then you'll be able to see like Philip Seymour Hoffman kind of reel in that over the topness of him. just a little bit, which I think he's really great at as well. But man, he's such a good actor. It's astounding. The William H. Macy character, though, whose wife keeps getting slept with.
Oh God, that was
Wow. Because that stuff still impacts me till this day. Because it's actually
that New Year's scene, that was crazy.
100%. Because it starts out, it's one of those things, man, where it's like it's all fun and games till it's not, you know. Because they really kind of play that as a joke. It's got this very like spoof movie tone every time that thing pops up where somebody else is sleeping with her, right? It's just got this tone of like, it reminds me of almost like watching Airplane or something, or Spaceballs. Like it's got that tone of that type of joke, you know, in a movie. And like it gets real serious real fast, man. The second he pulls out that gun, shoots his wife, shoots the guy, shoots himself in a very vivid shot. Honestly, it's a brilliant shot, but it's so disturbing.
Yeah, they did it was like a close up. It was a close up of him just blowing his own brains.
Yeah,
crazy.
There's not a lot of times I see that in a movie where I feel like they get that quite right, where it looks as vivid and as disturbing as it should. Like there's times in movies I see there are movies that have done it well after this, but there's times I see it in movies I'm like, yeah, I don't buy it, you know, when somebody has to shoot themselves. And you know, that's a choice, honestly. Like I think it always kind of depends on what feeling you're trying to get across with somebody committing suicide. I mean, it's a serious topic too. So it's kind of one of those things where you have to, you know, be careful, I guess, about it.
Right.
Depending on the feeling you're trying to invoke. And I think the feeling that Paul Thomas Anderson wanted to evoke, he achieved. Because, yes, it was disturbing, but, you know, there was kind of this theme in there about don't fuck with the little guy. You know what I mean? And everybody called him Little Bill through the whole movie. You know, he is like the little guy that nobody expected to, you know, do something like that. Nobody did. Everybody took advantage of him, and you should never do that. There's like a message there about that. So on one end, yes, it shows a very vivid suicide. On the other end, it was there to invoke a message. I think it worked for what he was trying to get across.
Another good one, Don Cheadle's character. That was another great one. Yeah, Buck. Buck was.
Yeah, I almost forgot about Buck, but he's great because, dude, I love this performance from Don Cheadle. Like, he's kind of a smaller part, but he actually, to me, he's the guy that did everything right. You know,
yeah,
he turned everything around. Granted, he still worked in the industry by the end to a degree, but he had his own business in stereo. So it was almost like he was working in the industry to get to another place. You know, he was he did everything right by the end of this, you know, because
it almost reminds me of from Hard Eight, Kirsten Dunst's character. No, yeah, Kirsten Dunst's character.
Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yeah, or Gwyneth Paltrow. Yeah, how she was basically just whoring out because she just wanted to live a better life,
right?
Yeah, basically make her life better. It almost reminded me of like that.
100%. Yeah, no, I could see that clearly because, you know, that's the other thing about karma. He ended up having good karma compared to the other characters because he had to witness something very bad to get there. But, you know, he got denied that loan and then it all kind of came back in a good way for him. He ended up getting that money and starting his own business. Very twisted, messed up way, but it worked for him, you know, at the end of the day. I mean, he's got to be a thankful guy that he made it out of that situation alive, too, that shootout that happened in the donut shop. So he ended up having really good karma, but it kind of a bigger conversation, but it kind of came at the expense of other people that probably didn't deserve that bad karma either. But who knows?
Well, the robber maybe, but you know,
yeah, the robber.
The other two, no.
Yeah, the one guy was just trying to help, you know. So you got to feel for him in that moment for sure.
And then the fucking server dude,
he was a server.
As guy just got fucking his brains blown.
Jesus, yeah. It's a very vivid scene, very disturbing.
Yes.
The way that it's all kind of done. Alfred Molina, another guy we could talk about here, who I thought was just so damned excellent in this because he's got this kind of over the top thing going on too in this. But
again, I never expected him to be in a role like this.
Yeah. Honestly, it's another one of those.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, I love the scene, by the way, because you mentioned that was one of the ones you had kept in, and I couldn't agree more because that scene to me is done so brilliantly. The guy lighting off the firecrackers added a lot more tension to it, I thought.
Yeah, but it was pretty fucking annoying. I won't lie.
It's
'Cause
annoying.
it was a cracker every like 2 minutes.
It's
If even
annoying,
that,
yeah.
it was a cracker every like minute.
Yeah, it's annoying, but it's supposed to be. You know what I mean? Because like the characters think it's annoying. You know, they're clearly disturbed by it.
No, I feel like it's more for them. They feel more scared than annoyed.
Yeah.
In the moment, they feel more scared than annoyed.
Mm.
Whereas to me, it was just plain annoying.
I
Like
gotcha.
I wanted the kid to just, I wanted someone to just make him stop.
I don't know. To
Honestly,
me, it like definitely like ramped up the anxiety because like, and maybe that's because it was annoying to me. Like, but it ramped up the anxiety too at the same time because it was like this thing of like,
it made me so annoyed that I just wanted them to just hurry the fuck up.
yeah, no, I get you. The Molina character though, he's great. He was, for a small role, such an impact in this thing. And like actually like I love the dancing to Jesse's Girl. That's like iconic to me, you know, and singing that. Which,
Jesse's Girl.
Oh, by the way, was I wrong? Is this not one of the best soundtracks though in any movie?
I mean, yeah, they just used a lot of popular songs for the most part.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was great.
Yeah, it's got an amazing soundtrack. I think every song fits the scene. Taking it back to the beginning-ish a little bit when Mark Wahlberg and John C. Reilly first meet, one of the references I loved is when he's like, have you seen Star Wars? He's like, yeah, 4 times. Obviously I love the Star Wars reference, but it also kind of invoked the era, you know what I mean? That's like Star Wars had just come out, so like
the 70s, in the 70s, yeah.
Now
like,
it'd be like, how many times have you watched New Hope? You know, back then it was like, have you seen
like,
that movie Star Wars? Yeah, I love that reference. Yeah, and I know Paul Thomas Anderson's a big Star Wars guy too, so I don't think this is the first time it's referenced his movies at all, because I know he has a affinity for it. But yeah, John C. Reilly trying to talk himself up, but you like him at the same time. You know, he's like, yeah, people tell me I look like Han Solo. It's like, but you like him, you really do. Like, you're like, oh, this guy, he's trying to make a friend. You know, he's really trying to make a friend here.
And then when he asks him if he work out, and then he's like, how much do you squat and how much do you bench?
And Mark Wahlberg called the bullshit right away because he was like, yeah, like, let's go at the same time when they asked.
Yeah,
you know,
and neither of them say anything.
None of them said anything, right? So maybe they're both kind of full of shit, although the Wahlberg character is definitely more viable in that moment because, I mean, you saw he's jacked in this movie, so you can buy that he definitely...
But that's also most likely because Mark Wahlberg himself actually was working out at the time.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. I'm 100% sure that he definitely was. Yeah, Wahlberg...
Although,
yeah, go ahead.
I do remember in one of the scenes in the beginning when I think it's the first time he came back home from work from the nightclub. You can see in the background when he's getting changed, you see one of those bars to work out. So
yeah,
I'd assume that his character, yes, does work out because he did have one of those like curvy, wavy bars in the background. So
by the way,
something I picked up on.
No, definitely. That's a good thing you brought up because I actually wanted to bring up the shot in the beginning when he walks into his room and then Paul Thomas Anderson actually it's a brilliant shot. This really like long kind of drawn out shot of his entire bedroom.
Yeah, the 360 shot of his room. Yeah,
and you learn so much about the character just in that. And that
he loves porn.
Yeah,
he got the car that was in the poster. He ended up buying it.
Right, exactly. You're learning so much about him just in that 360 shot, which I thought was really brilliant. I enjoyed that a lot. That was one of my favorites in the movie too. On top of, I mean, not as much as that zoomed in camera shot, but I love that shot of the room.
That inside the film camera shot is still gonna be it's honestly still my favorite. That shot was phenomenal.
That was awesome. Yeah, 100%.
And it was really cool too because when you were inside, what you were seeing was the scene, but it was upside down because that's how it works in the camera.
Yeah,
I thought that was really cool too.
Yeah, me too. That was another one that definitely stood out because it was so accurate to everything. And I kind of I'm a little bit obsessed with like old film and stuff. So like I enjoy that, you know. I really enjoy that 70s film and having to do that. Which, yeah, by the way, I mean, I can't remember. Maybe you could tell me. It wasn't even that long ago. I should be able to remember. Because this movie is shot in the widescreen. Was Hard 8 shot in widescreen? Do you remember? Like it had that.
I think it
Why?
did. I think it
I
did.
think
Yeah.
it did too, but I can't
Yeah, it
remember
did.
off the top of my head. Okay.
I think. Yeah, I think it did too. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It just makes the movies look so
Although
much
that
more
one,
expensive.
that one came out a lot earlier than this one did, right? When did Hard Eight come?
I don't think it was any. I think it was maybe just no. It was just like a year. I think
Oh, was
difference.
it just a
Yeah,
year?
yeah, 96 and 97. Yeah.
Ah, okay. Then yeah,
Well,
it would have been widescreen then.
he used the money that he made from making this to finish Hard Eight because remember the studio had cut it down. So basically, he had to do this one to basically give the studio the money to let him do the movie how he wanted, Hard Eight, because otherwise we wouldn't have gotten the movie we got, because they wanted to cut it down. It's typical studio stuff for you. You hear
Yeah,
that shit all the time.
for sure.
Although this one, I'm sure you would have been happy if New Line had cut this one down.
Yes. Just yeah.
Yeah.
At least to maybe like 2 hours 10, 2 hours 15, something like that. I don't know. Just like yeah, if it was a little shorter, I probably would have liked it more.
I know that, and we'll get to this more when we watch it. I know with Magnolia, it's the one movie that Paul Thomas Anderson wishes he can go back and cut down.
I bet you I'll have that same opinion when I watch
You
it.
might, yeah. That one, I don't know. I mean, to me, it's a tricky one because that's definitely one. If you have that same opinion, I'm going to ask you what you would have cut in that one because I actually think that one's going to be harder to cut stuff out of, in my opinion, even though it's as long as it is.
You have a film geek, studying guy right here, so I'll get to you when we get there.
I'd be very interested because Paul Thomas Anderson himself even says he'd cut that one down. I would just be curious as to what you would cut out of Magnolia.
You know what? I would love to have an interview with Paul Thomas Anderson
me too,
about
dude.
Magnolia and ask him what he would have cut out to see if my answer compares with his.
That would be very cool.
That'd be sick.
Yeah, 100%. I would love to. Yeah, I would love to know. I don't know if he's ever revealed what he would have cut because
exactly if he hasn't. Hey, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Let me interview this guy.
Well, he said with Magnolia, like it was one of those things where the studio did want to cut it down, but his arrogance at the time just kind of got the better of him, as a filmmaker, and he just was like stubborn about it. But looking back at it, he would have listened to that.
You see, he's evolved now. So
yeah, in that in particular case, he said. I don't think he said that about Boogie Nights so much, but in that case, he's at least kind of went back and said, I should have cut that down maybe a little bit. I mean, and granted. 3 hours and 8 minutes might be a little long for that story that he's telling. I just want to. I'm gonna have to study it and figure it out.
Especially for movies coming out at that time.
Yeah,
3 hours is very long.
Yeah, but is it though? Because no,
but that's the thing is you think about nowadays 3 hours probably is that's kind of like the new norm now. Back then 3 hours was like what the fuck, like Jesus Christ, this is a long ass movie.
Yeah,
back in those days, when did Magnolia come out? 2000
I think.
Yeah, back in 2000. I don't even think I was watching movies then, in the theaters at least. Maybe I was, I can't know. Wait, no, because I was born in 99, so I was 1 year old, so I wasn't watching movies. But I'd assume then the norm was probably like an hour to an hour and a half for movies.
It depends on the movie, I think, because I don't know. You look at what Tarantino was doing; most of his were coming in around 3 hours.
That's fair.
at the time, it just depends on the movie, I think, and who was making the movie.
I feel like for movies like these,
yeah, I don't know.
The norm would probably be like hour and a half, maybe 2.
Yeah, I think if he had the clout, though, the cool thing was to just try to extend it. I think that was kind of it. Because if you had the clout of Paul Thomas Anderson, then you can extend a movie at that time. Because Boogie Nights was such a hit that they just trusted him, I think, and just let him do what he wanted. I don't know. Again, I'm gonna have to study it this time to see what I would actually cut from it. Magnolia, when we watch it, because Magnolia was one of the later movies I saw of his. That's the most recent one I've actually seen was Magnolia. So okay. I've only watched it once, but I love it. I still think it's masterful. I personally, but we'll see. We'll have to watch it and just really kind of study what to cut out of that. It's a hard movie to cut, I would think, but hey.
According not to Paul Thomas Anderson.
No, he apparently would have cut it down. I want to know what he would cut. But yeah, dude. So yeah, going back though, I did want to talk a little bit about the sort of dynamic though of Jack and Eddie or Dirk, because that one of the funniest scenes in the movie to me is when he's kind of coming up with the name of Dirk Diggler. I thought that was so humorous the way
Yeah,
that he was like,
the scene in the hot tub with John C. Reilly's character as well. Yeah, that was really funny. I really like that scene.
when the sign showed up, the way that they just played that was hysterical. But we really see from there, honestly, Dirk Diggler start to really damage his life though, which is like not uncommon in the movie star industry in general.
I was gonna
Doesn't
say
have to be
honestly, like
porn.
this movie almost like this. The main story of this movie reminds me of Heart 8 because it
Yeah.
starts really the same. You have this guy struggling,
Another guy
who-
to help him.
who with another guy to help him, and this other guy doesn't really want the help, or doesn't really want the help, but then ends up getting the help anyways, and then just boosts and gets like so much money, becomes rich, is living this amazing life, and then some shit happens in his life that makes it go downhill, but then he comes back up and ends up going back to normal. So it's like these two movies almost have like the same storyline to it.
100% in a lot of ways. Yeah, this is like, I'm not saying that it's particularly better than Heart 8, but what I would say is it's him evolving from Heart 8. It's kind of taking what he's good at and evolving it a little bit and trying out new things too. That's another thing I like to remember when I'm watching some of these earlier films from great filmmakers such as Paul Thomas Anderson. Is like they're always at this stage, he's trying a lot of new stuff. You know what I mean? So you're going to end up probably with things that you might want to cut out, because you're trying new things. Yeah.
Yeah, because like Licorice Pizza is a whole different kind of movie to either of these two, honestly. Like,
yes, in a lot of ways. I definitely agree. I think it's a very evolved film, and he's definitely figured out a way by then to make everything very tight and concise. But I think that there's a lot of similarities to this too, because originally when I'd seen Licorice Pizza, that was one of my issues with it. Strangely, was I thought it was him going back to his roots too much, which is weird because now that I watch Licorice Pizza, it's a completely different film. But when I first saw it, it was like, okay, he's going back to the valley again, because this was done, it takes place in San Fernando, same as Licorice. So to me, it was like Paul Thomas Anderson going back to San Fernando and wanting to do the story that was like a lot. It was a very pulpy type story and stuff. But
I'm glad that I hadn't seen any of his previous movies when I watched Licorice Pizza.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, but strangely, like now it's again when I rewatch Licorice, and we'll get there in that conversation, but like when I watch it now, it's like it's a completely evolved, much better movie. Yeah,
it's an amazing movie, honestly.
It really is. Like he's really evolved, and you will see him evolve throughout these movies that we watch. I mean, I do find it interesting because I think Punch Drunk is after Magnolia, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Question. I've good question.
Yeah,
I'd assume so.
I think it's the one right after Magnolia. So it's interesting to see him go from the 3 hour, 8 minute, actually probably the heaviest movie in terms of the content of the three that we're going to watch by the time we get to Magnolia. And then he goes to Punch Drunk, which has a couple heavy moments, but it's a much lighter, fluffier, shorter movie. It's like, I think it's about the hour 45. So I find that interesting that he chose to do that.
Punch Drunk Love is the one after Magnolia.
So he really, like, to me, like, goes from this heavy movie to like this palate cleanser a little bit. It's a lot more tighter, and it's a lot more fluffier, I guess, than a lot of the other ones that we've been watching. There's a lot of real layers though to these characters in Boogie Nights. I mean, to me, like, what do you make of Jack Torrance in general as a character? Like, how would you define him as a person?
At first, he seemed like this nice filmmaker who saw this kid who was struggling in life. He was basically interviewing him. He's like, all right, so do you live alone? Where do you live? Where are you from? Why do you work here? All this stuff. And he sees that, he's struggling, working 2 jobs, and he's just basically this like nice guy who's trying to help this kid find his way through this world. And it's interesting that it's through the porn industry, but I feel like he always kind of knew that Eddie liked the porn industry, like the porn, and
He had
the
a good
porn
feeling,
industry.
yeah.
Yeah, and so he knew to go after Eddie because he knew that Eddie would be the next top dog in the porn industry.
Yeah.
But then when you got to that scene where, well, I guess the part in the movie where Jack he was kind of just moving on from Eddie, I guess Dirk now, and he was trying to use that other kid to make movies. It's kind of just like he's just kind of looking out for himself, anything that will make him bigger bucks. Kind of just saw Dirk as a kind of just not as a celebrity anymore. He's like, oh, he's not gonna make me enough money because he's kind of just older now. I kind of need to go back to the younger kids, find me a new Eddie,
Yeah. It's kind of interesting because I see it.
But then he goes no, and then at the end you see he's forgiven Dirk and he's given Dirk this second chance to go back into the porn industry, and now they're just like best mates again. So I feel like he always had that sweet spot for Dirk.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of different ways you could break these characters down because like it's funny you say it that way. I don't disagree with you entirely. Like I think that we definitely meet in the middle on our analysis of Jack because I do see it the same way as you do, just a little bit in reverse. My take on Jack, and it's, again, like I don't think there's a wrong answer because I think that it's meant to be analyzed a little bit more. So I don't think there's a wrong answer. But my take on Jack is that I think when he first saw Dirk, it was about the money. I think that was his motivation, was the money. I think he grew to actually love Dirk like a son, like I do in a weird way. He kind of did. But I also think that you're not wrong. This is kind of where we meet in the middle, that it kind of became about the money again. I think he had a lot of fear and it was really the Philip Baker Hall character, which is a good place to introduce him, that I think instilled the fear into Jack because the industry was changing, which was very accurate to the time, that everything was moving to VHS and everything was changing. And I think that instilled the fear in Jack to move in a different direction. But I think because of where Dirk ended up going in his life with the drugs and that sort of thing, and just kind of being corrupted by all that, and we saw kind of how it even affected his sexual performance too. There was side effects to that. Exactly. Yeah. So I think because of that, it made it so much easier for Jack to just say, yeah, fuck it, get out of here. But I don't think that his move to hire, I forgot the guy's name, the new guy, Floyd something, to hire Floyd. I don't think the move to hire Floyd was necessarily, I want Dirk Diggler out of my life. I think it was more so that I just need to make a different move in my films, but Dirk should still be a part of my life. But because Dirk just kind of went down a path that disrespected Jack, it was kind of like the father just being fed up with the son a little bit. That's kind of where that's what I feel. But I don't think he was ever trying to cut Dirk out of his life. I just think he was trying to cut him out of his career.
Right.
And that was a little bit, not completely, just use him more sparingly because of the way the industry was changing and the fear that was instilled in him. But I love the full circle moment. To me, that actually has a lot of heart when he does come back and they hug each other. Yeah. And like, it's actually a real heartfelt ending for a movie that ends up becoming so heavy in a lot of its areas toward the third act. It actually ends in a pretty heartfelt place. I think everybody's pretty good, with the exception, this will be the next person I ask you about, Julianne Moore's character. I mean, she kind of ends up in a bittersweet area, so to speak. What did you make of Julianne Moore in this movie? How would you define her? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that was an interesting character right there.
Yeah.
She, I mean, foxy babe as always.
Yeah.
Yeah, her character is an interesting one. It's almost like she just wanted to be mother, lover to everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone in her life, whether it was Jack, whether it was Dirk, whether it was the roller girl. I mean, she's just this caring, sweet,
really
woman that just loves everyone dearly. Everyone that she works with, she just loves them so much and just wants the best for them. And that's why she was actually one of my favorite characters in this movie, because she was just this sweet, kind, dear woman. even though she was a you know a porn actress, she was still just this delicate, sweet, charming woman that just cared so much for everyone that she worked with. And it was
Yeah.
very sad to see the scene where she went to the court to try and
Hmm.
get custody for her son and ended up not getting it. Yeah, it was so sad, man. I fell for her in that scene.
Hmm.
I almost cried myself. That shit was devastating.
Yeah,
Man, it was.
it was one of those things, talking about that scene, because that's one of those moments too where it's like you feel for her but you understand the court's decision at the same time, because she's definitely not fit to be a
I mean, yeah,
mother.
we never heard what the charge was for her getting arrested, but we can assume that it was very, very bad.
I mean, you look at all the cocaine she's doing, she's not fit to be
Yeah.
a mother, and
No.
that's very clear. So you
Right.
sympathize with her because she does have a good heart, though. She's good at heart. I
Right.
think that there's a really good message kind of in that character, to where, because there's people like that today, I think, that are just, they have great hearts but they're just a little bit damaged and don't always know how to give love properly,
There
the
was
way
also
that
a
they
lot. There
want
was
to.
there were scenes with characters in here too when they tried to change their lives, but they couldn't because their career follows them everywhere. Like for example, with the mom
Exactly.
trying to get visiting hours for the son, couldn't because the dad wouldn't let her because she lives in a porn house. Buck tried to get a loan from the bank, but they wouldn't let him because he's a porn
Right.
actor.
Right.
It was devastating to see these people try and change and have a better heart but can't because of their career.
Yeah, what I love about Paul Thomas Anderson as a storyteller in particular is that he always shows the consequences. This
Right.
movie, it shows things in glamour in a way, but on the same hand, it always kind of leads to consequences for
Right.
everybody, which I really love that. I mean, even Hard Eight had consequences for everybody. This movie was no exception to that. Like everything has a consequence. Like you could live that life, but I mean, geez, do everything in moderation, I guess, is probably the best message, because again, it did, come back to haunt them in consequence, in serious consequence. I mean, you have to do every choice you make. It's a deep conversation, but every choice you make in life, you have to think about how it
The
affects something.
consequences.
Well, how it's going to affect something else. And if that's the sacrifice you want to make, then you do it. And I think at the end of the day, Julianne Moore's character ended up making that choice to stay. And it's unfortunate for her kid, but she did make the choice to kind of stay where she was, in this
Right.
industry, because it's comfortable for her. And honestly, if that's how you want to live, then you're just not fit to have a kid. And that's something that she's going to have to accept, I think.
And I feel like by the end she has accepted.
She's accepted. Yeah.
Yeah, because she looks a lot happier now in life, and she looks content.
Oh yeah, she's got Dirk back,
Yeah,
which I
yeah,
find interesting.
yeah, because she sees him as a son.
Yeah.
She feels like she has her own kid back now,
Yeah.
and so she can live happy, move on. Sweet Home Alabama, that shit. Fuck your own son, shit.
Oh, she's kind of using Dirk as this sort of replacement for this void,
kind of like
coping mechanism. Yeah, that's a better way to put it. Coping mechanism. You're smart. And so I no, because like honestly,
it's almost like I'm in college or something.
yeah, something like that. No, I mean he is a coping mechanism, and I do find that interesting. It's like, well, he goes away, she goes to fight for her son back.
And then she can't get that son, but she's got her other son back.
Right.
Because there was that scene with the roller girl where she was sad because not only did she lose her actual son, she also lost Dirk, which she says that she loves that idiot bastard so much. Like you can tell how much in that scene she loves him. And she gets him back, and now you see that scene where she's like, he's crying and she's he's laying on her lap and she's kind of just cuddling him, that motherly cuddle, so like, yeah, there's definitely that motherly love there, and she's a lot more content now that she has Dirk back.
Yeah, I find that to be very kind of tragic, that scene. There's a little bit of humor to it too, the way it's done, but it's a lot more tragic than I think maybe it seems on the surface, where roller girl's just asking her to be her mom, and I think that Julianne Moore is a good heart again, so she's gonna agree to that, but on the same hand, she can't stop thinking about Dirk, so roller girl will never get the love from Julianne Moore that Dirk will. It's just not gonna happen. And I think Julianne Moore,
I think it's also because she slept with him, so it's like she has an even deeper connection to to Dirk. And
Yeah.
they've been doing all these movies together. They've just built this raw connection that Julie Moore won't have with anyone else, really.
Yeah, I mean, when they're doing their porn, I mean, it's not like crazy dirty sex. I mean, they're making love in that moment. Like, there's something happening.
It's intense, like soft, but very emotional, and
yeah,
it's some intense stuff.
It's wild, man.
And it's crazy. She's like, just come in me. Don't even
right.
Don't even pull out. Just keep going. I'm fixed. I was like, okay.
Yeah, which a good thing. She doesn't need to have any more kids, you know.
Oh God,
to abandon, you know. Like, I mean, it's a good thing. I mean, at least she was responsible enough to do that. So
yeah, I feel like she got fixed because she had that first kid.
Yeah, there's
makes sense.
I like that every character is very thought out in that way, to where like they all have their own backstory, they all have something. We can even like guess at some of them, you know what I mean? Like I mean, like when I look at Philip Seymour Hoffman in this, like I just assume he was a guy that was hanging around and one day they offered him a job, you know, like he was just kind of coming for the parties. That's kind of how I look at his character. You know, he was just this guy that was hanging around, kind of a weirdo, but kind of helpful at the same time and handy, you know, because he can hold a boom, you know, because like I think like a lot of those guys, I mean, holding the boom mics, it's not the hardest job in the world in filmmaking. I mean, all due respect to them, you got to hold that thing for a long time and it can get heavy.
Trust me, I've held the boom. I have mad respect for people who hold the boom. That shit.
Yeah.
It's obviously not the hardest job in terms of
instruction
and like in the film industry, in terms of having to do stuff, it's not the hardest. But at the same time, it is also one of the hardest, because you have to hold the boom for hours over your head like this. Your arms get so tired. It's like, it's mad respect for people who are boom ops.
Totally.
That shit is so tiring.
Totally. I never wanted to downplay it. I mean, totally. They definitely have a very tiring, exhausting job.
Any booms out there, trust me, I know you're pain, because I've done it before. It's not fun.
Yeah, no, 100%. But you need a guy like Phil Seymour Hoffman in this movie, because he's so into the work, as we saw in that scene. He's really passionate about it, that's for sure. And him and Dirk have a really good dynamic too. Like, I like that Dirk, I mean, in the first half of this movie, I mean, Dirk's a very nice guy. You know, he definitely, like, he's not as full of himself in the first half.
He also copied every single thing Dirk did. Outfits, the color of the car, the model of the car, everything was just copied exactly as the same as Dirk.
I like that after all was said and done, though. I mean, it was a nice little moment. Like, Dirk was still like cool with him, you know. He was like, "Yeah, it's okay, Scotty," you know, like, don't worry about it.
Until he started crying in his own car.
Yeah, which was just I mean, he got way into that. I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, the car thing it kind of cracks me up. I mean, I love the clothing shop sequence as well, where they're going through
and his pants and the pants didn't close for him.
Yeah, I love John C. Reilly. Was that a lizard? No, it's Italian. I love that scene. That cracks me up so much.
Oh man,
it was funny, because last week when I asked you what you thought this movie was going to be, kind of going in blind, you said dancing. There is a really good dance sequence in this.
I was gonna say, I mentioned that too. Like, it reminded me of that like 70s 80s disco vibe.
Yeah, it's a really well done dance sequence too, and
it was really good.
I'm a sucker for a really well done dance sequence in a movie. Like, I always go back to like Clerks 2, man. Like, it kind of comes out of nowhere, but like that's a great dance sequence.
That is a great Yeah, it is. It is a great dance sequence.
If you could pull it off, then do it. And this movie is another one that definitely pulls off the dance sequence.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Again, we're kind of going back to what we were saying with Hard 8, though. We start in one place, we end up in another. We don't quite know how we got there, but this movie does it, man. Because again, this first half of the movie is such a contrast to its second half, you know, because the first half is very much like, you love following Dirk, man. And then in the second half of the movie, you're like, I don't like Dirk so much anymore.
Then at the end, you like him again.
Of course, it comes full circle, right? And in a very cool way. Like, honestly, it plays to me very smooth.
Another one of Paul Thomas Anderson's magic tricks. Yep.
Yeah, this one I can kind of pinpoint the magic trick, in the sense that I kind of saw what he did with the, you know, because the end of the first half is very dark and intense. It's the suicide of William H. Macy, murder suicide. William H. Macy, and then to do that time jump, that was kind of how he did it. Like, so I can kind of see.
I was
the
gonna say
inner
there was a lot of time jumps in this movie too.
very much so. It
Whereas
does.
whereas in Hard Eight, there I mean I guess there was multiple time jumps. They just never like
there
they
was
just
like
never put it on
one, but
screen.
there was one big one that I could think of. This one has a few
No,
big
because,
ones.
well, I mean there was one. There was obviously the main one. That was like
Yeah.
when John C. Reilly's character went from gambling in the casino to rich, but then there was also the time jump from when they left the murder scene and came
Yeah,
back
that's
from.
right. That's
That's
right.
another.
That's
Yeah,
right.
you see, so there was
Yeah,
multiple in Hard Eight as well. That one was
that's a
just
good point.
it was never just put on screen like in this movie.
Yeah, this movie
And
really
yeah,
let you know.
yeah.
Which I don't know which way I like it better. I think it just worked either way, honestly. Like
I think I liked it better in the. Actually, no, it's because they're two different movies, so I feel like
they really are.
putting them on the screen fit better for
this one.
This movie,
Yeah.
whereas in Hard Eight, it fit better not putting it on the screen.
Well, the difference is with this movie, I think the brilliance of it being put on the screen, actually, the more I think about it, is that with this one, it really is trying to dedicate its scenery and everything to the actual year that it's in. So like everything needs to evolve with the actual time. So it wants to be accurate to that in terms of the way that the filmmaking evolves throughout time, the way that
makes sense, yeah.
people evolve throughout time. I mean, the cocaine just really, I love that when she's like, hello, 1980 and snorts up the coke, because it's like, yeah, there you are. That's, because that's what was happening. Like, and again, we go back to the Star Wars reference. I mean, all those different references really, do a good job. I'll tell you a fun fact about this movie. Now I want to see how you feel about it. So, because you told me your biggest flaw was the runtime. You told me what you would cut, and that's your kind of road bump on the way to the ending of this. So Quentin Tarantino, who's a friend of Paul Thomas Anderson's, and told this to him to his face. But he's told this in an interview as well. He has an actual big flaw with this movie. And the more I think about it, I'm like, he's not wrong, which I'll tell you what that is. So Jack Torrance, he's talking this big game, right? About how he wanted to make his masterpiece, right? The movie that's going to keep the people in the theater. They're not just going to jack off and leave. Like this movie he wants to make is going to keep it in the theater. And then he makes that movie with the spy thriller or whatever it was supposed to be.
The porn James Bond.
Right. Which was funny stuff.
Oh yeah.
Without a doubt. I do like the sequence in terms of how humorous it is. But then Jack Torrance is like, this is the movie they're going to remember me by. And so Tarantino's issue with this movie is like, if you look at the film, it's not all that great. Like the shots that they showed in the movie. And the more I thought about that, I was like, he's not wrong. Like when you really think about that sequence, does it kill the movie for me? No. But it's interesting that he considers that to be his masterpiece, because it definitely was not. I mean, like when you really start to think about it. I mean, but was the message too that Jack is so in over his head?
He also, in a way, for me, it seems like this was a movie venturing out of the porn industry and actually trying to make a film that didn't have any porn in it. So for him, for this being his first non-porn movie, it did its justice. You know what I mean?
I guess. Yeah, I get that. It was just kind of this thing of like, was that going to be the one to keep him in though? Like, because I could see plenty of people walking out of that in the theater. And like, I understand where Tarantino comes from.
For it being the 80s too, I mean, it's hard to do.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It didn't kill the movie for me. It's just it's a good point is all, because I think Tarantino,
well, it is, yeah.
The other reason that Tarantino I think points that out so much is because he also feels like, and Paul Thomas Anderson's denied this. So there's a really good filmmaker, and I can't remember his name, that Tarantino compared the Jack Torrance character to. Like he feels like Paul based the Jack Torrance character off another filmmaker that was really brilliant.
Okay.
And so he feels like, as much as Paul Thomas Anderson wants to deny it, he swears that that's who that's based on. Like the way he moves, the way he dresses is based on a different filmmaker. And so he feels like for that to work, that should have been a better looking movie. And so I understand where he's coming from. It doesn't kill the movie for me, because when I watch that film, it's hilarious. That little mini movie in there, which, speaking of mini movies, that was, I think I know what it is. In order to get this movie made, Paul Thomas Anderson did the short film Boogie Nights, which was basically, it was one of those shorts. Not with those actors, but I think the one that was his short was really when Mark Wahlberg's getting in and over his head and everything. That first time we see it in the big time jump, and I think that's the premise for Paul Thomas Anderson's original short, if I'm not mistaken.
the Dirk Diggler story.
Right. I think that was the original short that kind of like boosted this movie and got it made, which is pretty cool.
And that shit came out in 1988 as well.
Right. Exactly. Did that come out in 88?
It did. The Dirk Diggler story did come out in 98.
Yeah, that's right, because he said he took a break from doing an actual movie for a while. Like, but somehow that boosted this into making Boogie Nights, which was pretty cool. Yeah, because he said something else I remember from one of his interviews is Paul Thomas Anderson saying he walked into a film school and it scared the shit out of him, because the first thing the teacher said was, if you want to make Terminator 2, just leave now. Is what happened when he went to film school.
Oh shit! Hold on. I just got my mind blown.
Why?
The guy who played Dirk Diggler in the Dirk Diggler story short for Paul Thomas Anderson was the customer in the stereo shop when Buck was trying to sell him the stereo and he was playing the cowboy music.
Yeah, that's an Easter egg.
That was the guy who played Dirk Diggler in the short.
That's cool.
Thomas Anderson. Yeah,
wow,
that's crazy.
That's an Easter egg for you. Yeah,
there you go.
I didn't know that. That's a new fact.
I just looked it up. I blew my mind.
Look at you in the Google machine, man. Look at what you do. I love it.
Me and Google are best friends.
I'm loving the Google energy. But so Paul Thomas Anderson, maybe you could relate to this. He walked into a film school, and he left film school because that's what the teacher told the class: is if you're here to make Terminator 2, just get out now. And I guess that like scared the shit out of him. So he left film school. And so he was like,
film school nowadays is a lot different to film school.
I'm sure. Well, Paul Thomas Anderson's theory, and this is kind of why I like him as a movie maker, is he doesn't ignore the fact that like there's a place for these like big blockbuster movies too. Because one of the things he said is he feels like teachers, and maybe this is your experience, you can tell me, but he feels like the way that teachers should approach it is that they should actually show you the Terminator 2s, the Star Wars, and those types of things, and then kind of work backward into the auteur films instead of the other way around, to where they start with these auteur movies and then work forward.
They fucking should, because I am sick and tired of seeing all these motherfucking black and white silent films, bro. I'm tired of seeing Bonnie and Clyde. I'm tired of seeing the train, the rival of the train, fucking Charlie Chaplin. No offense to any of these. I've seen them way too many times.
Yeah.
I just want to see some actual, I guess what's classics for me. I need them. Like, I just need to watch them, man.
To me, that was always my philosophy too, is use the big blockbusters as a conduit to get somebody into film. You know, like Terminator 2, your Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, whatever. You know, these are like the
Steven Spielberg classics,
right?
Like Jaws, like and Jurassic Park.
Yeah, I feel
E.T.
like I'm not trying to like. This isn't a slight at you, but I feel like I almost did that with you. You know what I mean? Like in a way, like I've kind of I started you out with some blockbusters. Like you and I watched some really respected blockbusters together, and then we
Close Encounters of the Third Kind,
right?
Jurassic Park, Jaws.
Yeah, and now we're kind of working backward to like this auteur, which is like why I like Paul Thomas Anderson, because he does make these very like auteur films, but they're also like very like they don't ignore the fact of like they have these elements of them that are a little bit more respectable to the mainstream audience as well, which I think is just the best approach, man. You gotta respect your audience, and like it's, and like you said about those older movies, man, there's no disrespect for them. They have a place and they had a time.
They just don't apply now to film nowadays. So like,
right.
I guess in a sense is, what's the point in watching those movies if we can't do that now?
Well, and not to mention you don't see how they apply. You know what I mean? If you're not working if you're not working backward, which backward should really be forward, but you know what I mean? Like if you're not working backward from blockbusters, then you're not really going to see how that all kind of applies. It's only when you work backward that if they want to start from, these auteur 1920s, 30s, 70s films, at least, end by showing us these blockbusters now from like the 70s, 80s, 90s, you know what I mean? Yeah, well, that's 100% right.
Up to, because they usually just stop at like the 40s and 50s, and they don't show us anything after. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
then what the fuck's the point? Like,
Or better yet, show the guys that respect that type of movie making, like Paul Thomas Anderson or Tarantino or those types of auteur filmmakers, which, you know, are still, you know, again, like they still take from everything, but that's because in their own life they work backward. I mean, Tarantino got his start in a video store, you know, and that's how he got into movies. He worked at a movie store. He picked up everything, you know what I mean, and worked his way studying movies. That's how I learned about movies myself. I you know, started with the classics, and I love the classics. Right.
Same, honestly, but like at the time, at least for me, at the time it was movie gallery. I used to go to movie galleries, rent all the fucking classics, watch them.
That's how you start, and then you work backward. You like, okay, I want to learn where that filmmaker got his inspiration, though, because he was watching something else, and you watch that other thing, and then you want to learn where that person got their inspiration. Then you go backward even, and then you figure it out.
That's why I'm liking these classes a little more, is because
you
know, we're actually starting with the classics way back when, the auteur, you know, like the 20s and 30s.
Yeah, and that's cool, and they're respectable, and you have to see them, but it's not,
you know, they call that the canon for teaching film school.
Really,
it's showing these 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s black and white films.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And it's funny, I mentioned this now too, is my American film history teacher was actually having a conversation with me and the other students in that class, and he was asking us, do you guys think that we should change the canon?
Wow.
I went out and said, yes, I think we should. I think that the canon should be movies from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. Because we will learn better that way as films, you know, students studying film.
It's true.
I feel like we will learn more from classics better from like the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s.
It's true, and then you can go to the 20s, 30s, because then if you want, right? Because then, which I feel like you always will to a degree, because
well, we never get to the 70s anyways when I study, and none of my film classes have I ever watched a movie from above the 40s. Never in any of my classes.
That's crazy.
None.
See, I think that's ridiculous. I think there's so much important film that you're missing. Then that's my opinion. You know what I mean?
The thing is, I've seen, but I mean now I've seen a lot of them. That's the thing, because of, you know, with you or just on my own time. Like, I've seen a lot of them now. So
yeah, it's almost like you're getting a side education here, you know, just by watching this. Like Paul Thomas Anderson, and I would eventually I would love to go through Tarantino's filmography with you, or you know, and things like that.
Oh my god, Django Unchained is that's a classic.
It's a masterpiece. You know, it really is, man. You can't like watch that movie and you can't educationally.
That's a film right there that you can study hard.
Right.
Like,
you can't say educationally that he doesn't use all the proper elements and tools of filmmaking when he makes that movie.
Exactly.
He understands character. He understands action shots. He understands how to do all that. You know, like I
think that's now that I think about it, I think that's the main reason why I think it's harder to get, you know, into the film industry, and you don't see as many new directors these days, is because people who study in school aren't getting the proper education, aren't watching the correct films to actually understand what it is to actually be a director these days. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I always felt that way too, and I just found it interesting that Paul Thomas Anderson brought it up in an interview I was watching or listening to.
I mean, he's right.
He is 100% right. Wrong. Because that's why he never actually finished the course, you know, and just kind of started on his own, made the short, and you know, then ended up.
Fuck it, I'm gonna just do that, bro. I'm gonna just make a I'm gonna make a short and just fuck it, bro. I'm gonna drop school and just make a short and become a big time director, bro. Fuck it.
Who knows, man? I mean, who knows what can happen? It's interesting to hear that from somebody like him, who you think would have actually went to film school, like on the surface, but he just did all this from watching movies, you know, like he watched movies and picked it up and figured it all out. It's very impressive because he's got such a, I guess what I would call this, and to me, it's very evident in this one, in Boogie Nights. He's got such a steady hand behind that camera, you know, he really is steady with it. Like everything it feels very purposeful. It feels very calculated. I really enjoy that about this movie a lot. Like everything just felt right and calculated, even though, and it's not a slight, like you said, there are speed bumps, but that's part of, I think, him figuring it all out, you know, him kind of figuring it out, you know, trying to
true.
do new things and
Yeah.
working on it. I want to point out again, Michael Penn's score is great in this movie.
Oh yeah.
I love
100%.
that we got one of the same ones from Hard 8. It's definitely that same score that was playing in Hard 8 toward the end there.
Yeah, in the pickup when he was playing with himself.
Right, the one he would have
Oh no, when they were talking. Yeah.
Yeah. That score is in there. That was definitely, it's straight out of Hard 8. But then there's the one in the beginning that plays in the middle. It almost, that intro score almost breaks up the acts a little bit, because you hear it right when the first act hits, hear it right when the middle act starts, and then you hear it again at the very end. That score, it's actually, it's a kind of a bittersweet, kind of real pretty score. So I really wanted to point that out too, because I think it really sets a really interesting mood for the movie, to where it's like, I don't know. One of the things I loved about the opening of this movie too, go back to it, because even you were kind of like what the fuck am I watching? But like, it's so funny to me, because like at the same time, like I don't blame you for having that reaction, because this movie really it hits you with it, man. It starts out, man, like heavy.
Bro,
like
it slaps you in the face.
It does,
like, straight
across
away,
the face.
bro. Fucking hell,
with
bro.
like,
Just
this is what
like,
you're gonna be saying. You're gonna
fuck.
accept it, you know, accept that this is what you're watching. But I think that's so important too, man, at the same time, because like, if you don't have an opening that kind of does that for a movie like this one, then you are going to actually be really thrown off by the time everything else kind of follows. So I think you really need that. I thought it was very important to kind of go through his home life, go through the explicit sexual conversation of this movie, you know, kind of hit you in the face with all that right from the get. So that way, when everything follows, it doesn't actually feel so abnormal, I guess.
Right.
Like it does kind of normalize everything. Like I think I said this when we were talking about Hard 8, when you're thinking what he did for Vegas, man, he does for the porn industry in this movie. Like, it's interesting, man. It's not the point of the movie, but it's a conduit, you know, to get to what he wants to get through in the movie. I love that he constantly does that. I feel like he's constantly using these interesting conduits. Like Licorice Pizza, I would even say, the fact that there's a guy and a girl who have this incredible chemistry, who are kind of a different age, that's just the conduit. What really the story's about, it's just a love story, but there's this conduit of that makes it unique, of the age difference, you know what I mean? And
he's basically saying that age doesn't matter.
In that case, no, it's not the point.
If you're both of legal age, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I also think back in the 70s, it really didn't matter as much. I mean,
definitely didn't. No,
it was fucking Dirk Diggler 17 when he started.
Well, I mean, I guess nowadays people also really don't care.
Well, people don't. They should. I mean,
they should, but they don't.
As a society, we've evolved, but. On the same hand, though, like, yeah, Dirk was like 17 when he started in the porn industry here. And like, I mean, the 70s, it's really about the time period. I mean, but I understand why we've evolved at the same time to this sort of, we should probably date people our own age, or at least give it a 3-year gap at the slightest, or 4-year in adult years.
Or if you want to date someone who's a lot older or younger, just wait till they're of legal age.
Yeah. I think it's a case-by-case basis. I mean, when you're an adult, like, it's a lot different, because when you're an adult, you can have an age gap that's like, I don't know, it's a lot longer. I think that gap can be a lot longer and a lot more accepted, or maybe not even accepted. I mean, people criticize celebrities who have massive age gaps for getting married. That is true. And shit. So who knows? It's more, we're more critical on it but there is a good message there that maybe we should take away, is like, we are more critical on it now when we see it in the public eye. But a lot of the times, like, when people are critical of other people having an age gap in their relationship, they don't know those fucking people, and they don't know their chemistry and reality, and they don't know that if their love is real or not. So that's always something we got to think about. Do I think a 17-year-old should be in a porno? No. But if you're 22 dating a 32-year-old, then you got a different story. That's a different thing, because then we really have to start to think about, like, well, who are these people at heart? You know what I mean? Are they happy? Are they actually in love? Did they actually find love? You just don't know. I know that sounds like a stretch, but Licorice Pizza, I think, really proved that wrong, you know, in a lot of ways. to where, and like, yeah, I don't agree with it. Dirk Diggler should not be in the porn industry, but he's fucking dynamite at it. So who the fuck am I to say, that he shouldn't be? He's happy doing it. So I don't know. I mean, it's interesting, man, because you have to start. I like that he looked at everybody like people we'd meet in our real life. Like, all these conversations actually feel somewhat organic.
Right.
In this movie, like, everybody you could look at, and like, I just had you break down two characters, and you barely spoke about their porn industry endeavors. Like, what you talked about was who they were as people, and that's everybody in this movie, man. I could tell you who everybody is as a person. I know it's part of it, but it's about the human element. I think that's maybe. Now, let me ask you this question. So I did want to bring this up. So Goodfellas and Pulp Fiction are kind of held in this like high regard of film, right? Like, they're these highly regarded auteur films that, like, they're almost untouchable to a lot of people. I think that this movie is in the caliber. I'm not saying it's as good, but I think it's in the caliber. I think that it has the same expansiveness, but it's in the caliber. It's kind of like the bastard child of Pulp Fiction and Boogie Nights Pulp Fiction and Goodfellas. Like, if Pulp Fiction, Goodfellas had a bastard child, this is it, like, I don't know if that makes sense. Do you kind of agree with
it does.
my path on that?
Yeah. For sure.
So the question becomes then, like, why doesn't this one get talked about as much? Like, I still feel like it's a respected movie, but people that are
because
in the know,
of the porn,
it's a stigma, right? Like,
it's because of the porn, because you don't really see that in, well, you don't see it in Goodfellas. At least I can't remember. You don't see it in. Do you see it in Pulp Fiction? I can't remember.
I always had a theory that the Uma Thurman character in Pulp Fiction ended up in the porn industry. That was just a side theory, but you never see it. Right, yeah. It's never shown.
Exactly. So I think that's why. I think it's because there's actual porn in this Boogie Nights movie that
it's a stigma.
Not. Yeah.
Yeah, like, people have a stigma.
Even though I just looked at the Rotten Tomato scores, and it's got a phenomenal like Rotten Tomato score. Like,
yeah, people that are in the know are in the they know, but like, I feel like we don't hear about it in conversation.
And I think that's why. I think it's the stereotyping of the porn industry then.
Yeah.
And just the fact that there's a 17-year-old who's in the porn industry, I feel like a lot of people just don't want to talk about that, especially nowadays.
Yeah. Well, here we are. We're two guys talking about it. And like, I think that's important, man, to have these conversations, because like, there might be people listening or watching that haven't taken the leap to watch this because they were like, I don't want to watch something about the porn industry. I even think you had a little bit of stigma going in. Like,
well, when you told me that it was one, that I did.
But it plays well,
I thought it was just gonna be a bunch of people. I thought it was gonna be some like dance war stuff, like fucking West Side Story Part 2 or some shit.
And the verdict?
It was good.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Yeah.
It was good. It was again, like I said, pacing and timing, I could have probably done better, but overall as a movie, I did really enjoy it.
It's a character piece, right? At the end of the day. And I think that's kind of hopefully what, if anybody's listening, I do hope you check it out and have heard the fact that we are talking about these characters. They're layered. There's a lot of layers to the movie. There's a lot of layers to the story. It's not
like
just
onions, because onions have layers.
Exactly. It's Shrek. It's just like Shrek, this movie. If your kids love Shrek, you got to show them this one.
Definitely not. Don't listen to a single word this man just said.
For fans of Shrek, Boogie Nights. Oh, that statement's funny knowing the context of the movie. But man, I'm telling you, if anybody has been hesitant, though, I mean, check it out. It is
definitely give it a watch.
It's of the caliber for sure. Let's go ahead first of all and grade this thing. I'm gonna say must watch. I think that go ahead. I'm gonna say must watch.
I'm gonna say never watch. I'm kidding. No, I'm gonna say a must watch. It was
nice.
It's a. I don't know. Actually, no. You know what? Upon first watch, I'll probably give it in between a must and maybe.
You're low on the must.
Yeah. Just because, again, like I said, the timing and pacing is really just like, it's one gripe, but it's still like kind of a big gripe for me for this movie.
Yeah. Well, so. I don't know. Maybe opinions change upon the second watch.
I was about to say, I
Yeah.
maybe need to watch it like 2-3 more times, and then my
Yeah.
opinion will change. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? 100%. I have a feeling, because this is one little small PTA tangent here, because like I have a feeling like, because his movies have done this to me. I'll be sitting there for 2 weeks, and then the movie will just creep back up in my mind, and I'll be like, I gotta watch that again. Like somehow, like they
Bro,
just
like I
have
said,
that
I'm
impact.
gonna be seeing Mark Wahlberg's dick in my sleep tonight.
100%.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's ingrained, man. It's iconic.
It is.
It's ingrained.
I might as well make it my log screen. I'm just kidding.
So we'll start to keep track of the ranking here too. So for me, I'm putting Boogie Nights above Hard 8. So for right now, it's Boogie Nights, Hard 8 after. Where are you going?
Fuck, man.
Not by a mile though. Well, let me point that out. It's not by a mile.
Oh, but mine's not gonna be by a mile either. But yeah, I think I'm putting Hard 8 above, and then Boogie Nights.
Fair enough, man. That's awesome. I think that's great that you have that reaction, because Hard 8 was my first viewing, and I didn't know what to expect from that, and it turned out to be excellent. So yeah, again, like I said, it's not by a mile.
it's definitely not.
Yeah,
they're literally like right there. Honestly,
yeah, they're
like,
neck and neck
like,
almost. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I still, this one I hold, it's in my DNA, I hold this one a little bit higher, and it could just be the nostalgia of it, like I have.
It's a good thing that you have a fresh set of eyes here that hasn't seen any of these.
Exactly. That's why I love this. I think the ranking is going to get very interesting as we move. I do. I think it's going to be very interesting.
I'm not gonna lie. I think I've got Licorice Pizza above these two. I'm not gonna lie.
And I think that's fair. I do. I think it's 100% fair, and I might when we get there.
We'll get there. Yeah.
Yeah, man, I'm excited for Magnolia. So we'll ask you the same question that we did with Hard 8. What are you expecting blind watch from Magnolia?
A flower.
I love it.
Something about a flower.
I love it.
Who the fuck knows?
I love the theory. I can't wait till you see the movie and get what you get out of it, because
action, romance, guns, because there's always guns. When the fuck is there not guns in Paul Thomas Anderson movies?
Fair.
Sex, alcohol, parties.
All right.
Yeah, that's probably about it.
I'm going to say this. I'm not confirming or denying what you think or whether it's right or not, because I do want you going blind. But I do think, based on your theory, you're going to be completely surprised by the movie. That's all I'm going to say.
Fuck, so I'm completely off. Goddamn. Okay.
I'm not saying that. I just think you're going to be completely surprised. That's all.
You said that about Boogie Nights too.
Were you surprised?
I was.
All right, there you go. All right. Yeah, I think all his movies they kind of remain sort of unpredictable in a lot of ways. So
I mean, Licorice Pizza, with that title, I thought it would have been about a pizza that had licorice on it.
Licorice on a pizza. You never know with him. You never know with PTA, dude. Like, you just never know what he's gonna do. I think can I point this out too? Because I think I noticed it in. You'll have to tell me if you remember, because I noticed it in Hard 8. Did this one, did it say directed by P.T. Anderson or Paul Thomas Anderson?
At the end?
The beginning, the opening credits.
Hard 8 said, what did Hard 8 say?
It said P.T. Anderson.
I think this one actually said Paul Thomas.
Did it? Okay.
Yeah.
The Blu-ray definitely says Paul Thomas, but I don't know if it's in the opening. I have to go back and look.
I'd have to go back and look too, but I'm pretty sure it said Paul Thomas.
Yeah. All right. I'll look at it and see. I'm probably gonna put it on again, actually, just to watch, because one more thing about this Blu-ray, guys. If you want to pick it up, I found this at like $6.99 at Best Buy, by the way, which was a pretty good steal.
Shit.
Yeah, it was a real good steal. Probably more expensive now there, but I don't know, Black Friday buy or something like that, if you want to grab it. But this director's commentary that's on this Blu-ray, he had first done that for the Laserdisc copy of it, and basically this commentary is very important because it actually is the commentary that like started the popularity of DVD commentaries. Like, a lot of people will point this one out to being like the first one they watched that was like, or listened to, that was like actually like informative and interesting. And honestly, I kind of actually want to check out the commentary, because I never had. That was actually something I learned about it recently, is that the commentary is one of the ones that people point to all the time and reference as being the one that really made commentaries popular in movies. So that's an interesting fact. So I do recommend picking it up for that. It also has deleted scenes, has Michael Penn's Try music video on there. It also has the John C. Reilly films, or I'm sorry, the John C. Reilly files, which includes outtakes and its extended sequences, I'm assuming from John C. Reilly. And you can also see the original theatrical trailer. On top of the commentary from Paul Thomas Anderson, you get a commentary with Don Cheadle, Heather Graham, Luis Guzman, William H. Macy, Julianne Moore, John C. Reilly, Mark Wahlberg, and Melora Walters. So a lot of interesting features on this Blu-ray disc. I do recommend picking it up. We are not sponsored, I promise. Oh, look at that. Well, look at that.
What?
You see at the bottom?
What is it? What is that?
Written and directed by P.T. Anderson.
Oh, P.T.
So
damn.
that's interesting. Okay. I was trying to figure that out. Yeah, really quick, couple little things we forgot to touch on. Just realized we didn't really talk about Roller Girl that much, but I thought Heather Graham did really well in this movie.
Oh yeah,
let me go ahead and mention that. And Luis Guzman,
the fact she went and got a GED was sick.
Yeah,
loved that.
Yeah, I you don't see Heather Graham in a lot of roles like this, like to where she's actually got a lot of depth in her character. So
definitely not.
I enjoyed that from her. And Luis Guzman, for his small part, was funny. I thought he was so funny. I loved at the end the Rodriguez brothers, and they had the Q in the sign. Yeah, he's like, it's a Q. They were so excited, and then he just like went from excited to disappointed when he found out the Q. So that scene always makes me laugh. Anyway, guys, it's been a great movie mornings. This is Boogie Nights that we are talking about today. Thank you, Jose, for being here again.
Of course, and I can already see the Magnolia breakdown is going to be like 2 hours long.
Dude, I mean, you could see, right? Like, we're getting into some heavy stuff with these Paul Thomas Anderson movies, and like Magnolia is going to be the one I think that we're going to really start diving into some real heavy conversations. So is what it is, man. All right, look, before we go, hit that like button below, subscribe to the channel, leave some feedback in the comment section, share this with your friends, hit the bell for notifications. Once again, I do want to thank Jose. Before we go, where can people find you?
You can find me here, Twitter and Instagram, type 1 Latino, all lowercase all together, and on YouTube and Twitch.
All right, dope. And you guys can find me on Twitter at Dom_Martino_, and on Instagram, Dom_Martino_official. And then you guys can also follow the Anorex pages at Anorex Official on Twitter and Anorex Official on Instagram. So make sure you guys go ahead and do that. Check us out on Spotify. We are going to have the episodes updated here. Well, it should be updated by the time you watching this episode, so make sure you go check us out there as well. Thank you guys for joining. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and we will talk to you guys later.
See ya.